All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. This is episode 315, and this is another one of those passages at the end of First Chronicles that is similar to that at the beginning of First Chronicles. And I am going to combine First Chronicles 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27 in this passage or this morning devotion. I'm just going to put this all under the heading of David's structure of the nation, or the way he's going to organize the nation of Israel as he passes his lineage on to Solomon. That's what we're going to look at here. So if we look at verse 23, the focus chapter 23, the focus of that is the structuring of the Levitical priesthood. So that's what we have in the 32 verses. And it tells us in verse 27 that for by the last words of David, the Levites were numbered from 20 years old and above. Now, the emphasis here is that he is giving the worship of Jehovah in the tabernacle priority. That's what we have here. So he's getting this all straightened around. In verse 25, he says, "For David said, the Lord God of Israel hath given rest unto his people, that they may dwell in Jerusalem forever." And then he says, and also unto the Levites, that they shall no more carry the tabernacle nor any vessels for it, for the service thereof. That is because everything is now going to be permanently located in the temple. All right, so that's what chapter 23 is about, all the courses of the Levites. Now that is broken down further in chapter 24 when he goes through the divisions of the sons of Aaron particularly. All right, so these are all going to be those sons of Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. And it says, but Nadab and Abihu died before their father and had no children. Therefore, Eleazar and Ithamar executed the priest's office. And we know the story of Nadab and Abihu, who offered the incense that did not belong there. Okay, and the Lord struck them dead from fire out of the Holy of Holies. So there's reference to that. But that's what this is in regards to. All of chapter 24 has to deal with the divisions of the sons of Aaron, which then brings us to chapter 25. And in so we have the organization of the Levites as a whole, then we have the organization of the sons of Aaron. Then we have, in chapter 25, the numbering of the musicians. Everything in regards to the worship of Jehovah is being covered here. So we have a whole chapter here. In chapter 25, it says, moreover, David and the captains of the host separated to the service of the sons of Asaph and Heman and Jeduthun, who should prophesy with harps and psalteries, with cymbals, and number of the workmen according to their service was. And then we have a whole list of those that played instruments and those that sang. That's what we have here. So this is the musical aspect of it. We have the sacrificial aspect of it. We have more or less the administrative aspect of it under Aaron. Here we have the musical aspect of it. And so that's what chapter 25 is in regards, 31 verses. Then you come to chapter 26. He's just laying this all out. This is all organizing everything that's necessary for Solomon when the temple is built. Now, I said earlier that, and I described all the material to build the temple and all the craftsmen to build the temple. I described it as coming in a box like Legos, that everything is there. All right. Now we have all the parts there. We have everything for the construction there. And now what we're dealing with are these different groups of individuals that are actually going to serve there. All right. We have the Levites. We have the sons of Aaron. We have the musicians. Now they're the ones that are going to minister there. And that's what he's laying out. And he's laying them all out by course. I mean, who's going to do what and when. And then in verse 26, we're pressing on. I keep saying verses. Chapter 26, we talk about then are the porters. And the porters are those that took care of the gates of the tabernacle, are going to take care of the gates of the temple. And their job is basically just to open and close doors, as we would understand a porter. But when you read more about these men, part of their responsibilities too is to make sure nothing or no one that is unclean goes into the temple. So they have they function as gatekeepers as well, not just those that open and close doors, but they're going to establish who actually enters the temple that's going to be built. What can I say here? To keep the impure and the improper persons from entering. And in this passage of Scripture, because when it talks about the gates, these gates are going to be assigned to these individuals by lot. Depending on what the lot comes up, that's the gate that you're going to be responsible for opening and closing and protecting from anything that is unworthy of the temple entering in. All right, so that is chapter 26. So we have 23, 24, 25, 26, all having to deal with family members and those in specific offices, and musicians and singers, and those that are going to take care of opening and closing the doors for the actual operation and function of the temple. That's what David is laying out here in these 4 chapters. And there's more. Before he goes, now this is in a little different frame, but if you come to chapter 27, now he's going to lay out what most men argue is a national militia. He does not have a regular full-time standing army, which I think is very interesting. We're in a time of peace. We're in a time of peace here, and so he is a man of war, but right now he's subdued all his enemies, and now he's establishing this national militia that functions for 12 captains for every several months. That is, it's divided into 12 months in when you serve, and the number is 24,000 per month. All right, and then that's broken down to captains who are going to govern by thousands, and then others that are going to govern by 100s. But the key to all of this is that based on the numbering, which he should not have done, he's calculated this, and this is how he's going to maintain his military. So he does not have to keep a huge army and pay a huge army and feed a huge army. They're going to cycle in every month. And that's what we have in verse 1. It says, "Now the children of Israel, after their manner, to wit, that is this way, the chief fathers, which would have been the head of the tribes, and the captains of thousands and hundreds, and that are just going to be military commanders, some over 1,000, some over 100. We're showing structure here in the way David is laying out the military, okay? Now, he's about ready to die, but this is what he's setting up as he comes near his death, and this is what he's going to transfer over to Solomon. So you have the chief captains, the captains of thousands and hundreds, and their officers. And the officers here is very interesting. The officers are here are those that are going to aid the captains and the over the hundreds and the thousands. That is, they are like the commentators call them as scribes, or those that keep track of the military muster. When you muster the troops, you want to know who's there. And that's what this is. These officers, one man said that they were recruiting sergeants, the scribes, that they are military officers that are keeping track of who's there in the ranks, all right, as they serve among the thousands or the hundreds under the direction of the chief fathers or the heads of the tribes, all right. But this is all a military thing that he's laying out here. And it's made up by 24,000. That's the last portion here of verse 1. Of every course were 24,000. And then you go through the passage, and everybody has to come up with their men in that month to accomplish this army that David has got in place, which I think is very interesting. It reminds me a lot of what Israel is doing right now, because everybody in Israel is in the army. Now, I don't know if, because, I'm no expert on the military in Israel, if they're all serving all at the same time is the point. Because here, everybody is in the army, but they're not all serving at the same time. But that's the way Israel has been all the way since these ancient days, since David. That it is a nationwide standing militia drawn from all the tribes of Israel. That's what we have here and when it's their turn to take the lead, it's it's like the National Guard, who 2 or 3 weeks a year go to their National Guard duty. That's what we're looking at here, only it's on a national level, and it's divided. There's 24,000 that come out of each tribe who have the responsibility during that month to take the lead militarily. That's what we're looking at here. And there's just some things that reflect what's happening in Israel right now. That's what I'm trying to say. There's things that are going on right now that reflect this, and we don't have this formally here in the United States. But what we have here in the United States, and I think everybody around the world knows this, is that the people of the United States, because of the Second Amendment, is the largest, if you wanted to call it this, we are the largest standing national army in the world, because our forefathers had the foresight to say that you have a right from God to protect yourself, not that it's granted by the government, and that is our right to bear arms. It is not to be infringed on, as much as all of our government, so many of our government officials are trying to do, especially here in Virginia. What she's doing, what our governor is doing, is absolutely contrary to what the Constitution meant and says. All right, but those that want to oppress the American people, and those that want to subjugate the American people, and those that want to take our liberties away, tyrants that want to take our liberty away, are incrementally, in drastic ways, but they're trying to do it incrementally, making it more difficult for us to protect ourselves. That is, to arm ourselves. And the reason that we have the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms was not so we could hunt. That's not why. Our forefathers knew, because they had just fought their way out of that war with Britain to get our independence. What they're saying is, we always have to be prepared to fight our way out of tyranny that is oppressing the liberty that we have in this great land, this exceptional land, which we call America. Now, there's only 13 colonies when they wrote that, but I mean, it remains true to us, for us today. But all I'm saying is, while Israel may have their standing army, but they're actually in the military. We're not actually in the military, but as far as a standing army armed to defend the homeland, this great nation of America far surpasses that. That is, we are, as a nation, surpassing what David is doing here. I mean, he has these elements, 24,000 a month. Israel is doing the same thing. I think everybody's in the army after a certain age. And here, there's nobody under 20. You got to be 20 to be part of this, according to what we're reading here in the Bible. Now, in the United States, it's 18, you're an adult. But here it was 20. Don't number anybody under 20. But after that, then you're in the army now, is essentially what we're saying here. And the same thing, we in a unstructured way are emulating this in this land. All right, they could easily, our government could easily, although they're not doing this because we have the National Guard and we have the military, but you could easily get 24,000 people out of each of the 50 states to say it's your responsibility during this month to do something in protection of America. It'd be a cinch. All right, that's not the way our government is laid out, but that's what David's doing here. It's interesting, too, in this passage, in verse 23, of chapter 27, it reflects on something we commented on earlier. It says, and David took not the number of them from 20 years old and under. All right. So when the census was taken, anybody under 20, they're not in the number. He says, because the Lord had said he would increase Israel like the stars of the heavens. Now here, David has learned his lesson because the census is already done, but the next verse is very interesting. It says, Joab, the son of Zeruiah. All right, Zeruiah is David's sister. Joab is David's nephew. We've been making that case. Joab, the son of Zeruiah, began to number. Remember, he just goes out, but remember, he doesn't number the Levites or the tribe of Benjamin. He goes on, he says, began to number, but he finished not. We read about that. Yeah, he didn't finish. He says, because there fell wrath for it against Israel, for the numbering, the wrath of God, and 70,000 are dead. Here it is reminded again, even here. He said, neither was the number put in the account of the Chronicles of the King David. So that number that was not counted was not put in the Chronicle or in the record. There's a little note here. The next thing you have in verse 25 is who's going to run the treasury. You got to have the treasury. And then the chapter 27 ends with some pretty famous names here that you're going to want to remember. Or when we went through Kings, I mean, they're all there. But let me just read these. He says, also Jonathan, David's uncle, was a counselor, a wise man and a scribe. And Jehiel, the son of Hakmani, was the king's sons. And Ahithophel was the king's counselor. And Hushai the Archite was the king's companion. Remember all those names? He said, and after Ahithophel, it was Jehoiada, the son of Benaiah, and Abathar, and the general in the king's army was, and the general of the king's army was Joab. So he's giving you all the names of all these influential people in the king's cabinet. That's what we're looking at here. So beginning in 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27, what we're seeing here, and this is what I call this, David is structuring the nation of Israel. He's laying out everything. The first section of it here has to deal with getting everyone ready to serve in the temple that his son Solomon is going to build. We have the Levites, we have the descendants of Aaron, we have the musicians and the singers, and we have the doormen. All right, everybody that's going to work around the temple is in place. Then we have these instructions about the standing army and how that was to be structured, and that's in chapter 27. Now, we only have two more chapters here. That's in chapter 28 and 29. And what this is going to do is when he passes everything on to Solomon, and basically these last two chapters, and this is very broadly said, are just going to make sure that these last verses, the chronicler explains and reveals to us by inspiration about how God-centered, how Jehovah-centered David is, and how Jehovah-centered Solomon is, as there is a transition in leadership between David to Solomon. That's what we're going to have in these last two chapters. Okay, well, that was a little different, but I wasn't going to read all these names again. All right, there's other details, but that's the sum and substance of chapters 23 through 27. And Lord willing, we'll pick up on chapter 28 tomorrow. And again, for those that are watching, 6 o'clock at the Duxborough Community Center, we're going to do our fifth lecture on canonicity. It's very important. This is another central pivotal lecture that we're going to give. It starts at 6. We get right out at 7. Lord willing, I'll have the internet up and running, and it's at Peter Van Cleek Ministries on YouTube. Peter Van Cleek Ministries on YouTube. And we'll press on in this. I think it's been very rewarding. It's good for me to work over it again. Exercise on what the Bible itself says, a biblical theology of canonicity. It's just been a refreshment to go through it again, and I know it's been a refreshment for all those who have attended. So that's it. Well, the Lord bless you. You have a great day. I got to tell you, it's supposed to be 74 today, and the sun's shining. I mean, it's almost summer. Okay. All right. Well, the Lord bless you. We'll see you.